Have you ever played Phasmophobia and thought something along the lines of, I think that my paladin could easily take on those bozos? Well, if so, then your view on the undead power level was probably in some way shaped by D&D 5e. That's because in the current edition of D&D, the undead are essentially castrated, mutilated shadows of their former self. And I am not even joking here. Most of their terrifying abilities were taken away from them or reshaped so that they will feel less powerful. With, of course, some exceptions, like the subject of today's video, the ghosts. Ghosts, for the most part, still can be kind of powerful, although their most frightening abilities have a pretty low saving throw DC, which coupled with the ghost's general squishiness makes that in most cases they are not that hard to just overpower in a regular combat encounter. This also happens to be the main problem of running horror in D&D, because the horror-inspired creatures are not especially a terrifying matchup against higher level PCs. As what can the monster do when the paladin deals an amount of damage greater than their HP in a single round? Well, in this video I will show you how you can make and use ghosts more creatively, so the players could actually fear the fight with them. Firstly, we have to establish what causes the ghost to appear in D&D. Well, the D&D lore states that ghosts are undead of a sentient creature which appears in a place which held significance to them. The ghosts appear out of particularly evil people, those that were denied a proper burial or ones who had an unfinished business. Now, in history, ghosts would appear for different reasons. In Christianity, for instance, you could for example be possessed by a ghost who was a demon, but also by a good ghost that was helping you, like in the case of Lucia from Friuli, who received aid from good spirits. Also in Central Europe, it was believed that during the equinoxes, when the barrier between the worlds of the living and the dead was at its thinnest, you could ease the fate of ghosts wandering the world by granting them some gifts in the form of food or drink. So now that we know how the ghosts actually exist, in order to make an encounter with a ghost truly memorable and terrifying, we first have to look at the creature's design and see why they are not utilized to their full potential. Dungeons & Dragons gives its spirits two abilities that are unique to its kind. Horrifying Visage, which can frighten your character with a wisdom saving throw, or in case you fail by 5 or more, it physically ages your character. And Possession, which at least for me is pretty self-explanatory. Unfortunately, they also have some traits like the one I've talked about earlier in today's video, but the reason for the failure of ghosts in D&D can be found in that they are just kind of weak. Yes, they still have those powerful abilities that can turn out to be pretty terrifying, but they also are very costly for the ghost, and basically they rely on a character to fail an insanely low saving throw to be affected by their aging feature. And when I say an insanely low saving throw DC, I mean a saving throw DC of 8. This makes it impossible to fail for any character like a druid or a cleric that have an 18 or higher wisdom score by level 5, as even rolling a natural one won't make them succumb to that effect. Moreover, the ghosts aren't particularly tanky, and any party I run D&D with could handle a ghost within one round at level 4. That's why the first changes coming from me to the ghost stat block is increasing its survivability, giving them immunity to all damage except for radiant and incoming from specifically designed weapons. The next one is handling saves of the ghosts. Firstly, it is necessary to increase the saving throw for aging effect, in order for it to be actually frightening and not just something that almost never happens, while simultaneously handling the other ghost's special ability, Possession, in not exactly a typical way. Also, what I would do in order to spice up each ghostly encounter you are going to run is to make some specific abilities that only one particular ghost, or a specific kind of ghosts, can do. For instance, let's say that one ghost can create illusions that will be misleading for your players. And the reason for this ability is because the person who's now bound to be the spirit died as a result of treason or was killed in a dishonorable manner. Those solutions cover the mechanics of ghosts, but for me what makes ghost stories interesting is their mysteriousness, trying to figure out what exactly is happening and what shall be used to resolve this problem. That's why I would recommend you to run ghost encounters not purely as a combat, as it won't be as memorable, but as something grander. I talked about encounters like that in the video about improving combat in D&D, but for now let's just say that those encounters take the form of a mixture of encounters suited into one. Those are the encounters which require your players to be really creative in order to overcome them. For example, when you're structuring an encounter where the party has to get rid of a ghost, you should first make a mystery regarding the spirit, so that the players would have to acquire some information in order to stand any chance against the undead. Typically, you would want them to find the information where the ghost hides, what type of the ghost they're facing, its abilities and weaknesses, as well as hints to the final formula. I'll talk about this thing later in this video. However, the ghost itself cannot be passive. It has to actively try to undermine the PC's endeavors, with occasional brief appearances to throw them off, or maybe aid them. Creations of environmental hazards, like that moment in Lego Ninjago in Sensei's Young Temple, and, of course, possessions. Now, possession is a tool I would use carefully, as it is probably the most, or one of the most powerful abilities that the ghost can use against the player. That's depending on the ghost's specialities. So, instead of just brutally trying to possess players in combat, the undead should wait until the perfect moment to strike, i.e. the party is split, and the ghost possesses one of its members. Although, don't make the possession too obvious. When a PC gets possessed, hand them a card or write a DM to them that they're possessed, and they'll have to follow the instructions you'll pass to them. Those instructions should preferably try to sabotage the player's efforts, but nothing too obvious unless this is the last resort.
Cut my life into pieces!
In case of the players failing to exorcise the ghost, the possessed player can seem not too suspicious for a number of sessions when the players realize that they were being followed for a long time. Finally, when the players figure out what specific place the ghost is bounded to, the final battle shall ensue, which could take the form of a classical combat encounter, although I wouldn't recommend it, as spirits by nature are quite ethereal, therefore subsequently not really material. So battling them in a traditional sense would kind of take that away, at least for me. However, in case you're a combat connoisseur, I would keep it as an option, with a disclaimer that combat should surpass the difficulty of exorcising the ghost by using some more traditional or conventional methods. More conventional at least than literally beating the shit out of a ghost. But what should it look like? Well, in medieval and early modern Europe, performing an exorcism was regarded as an uneasy task, and there are numerous accounts of an exorcism failing multiple times before the priest finally got the right formula, with some medieval stories stating that oftentimes in order for the specific exorcism to succeed, it required the presence of a specific saint. However, regardless which form did the exorcism take, in the end to finally execute this ritual successfully, a specific sentence had to be said. The structure of that sentence was dependent on the exorcist's own mystical prowess and the demon's answers. Now, I believe that conducting such a ritual would be greatly beneficial to the encounter, as it fits better to the concept of ghosts in culture than a rather mundane fight. Hence, in Dungeons & Dragons, conducting an exorcism should take the form of preparing the surroundings of the spirit's space, with something that would weaken the spirit's abilities, like spreading salt across the room or lighting some candles. While in the ghost base room, it should be the most dangerous and powerful. All of its powers should be amplified, unless they're countered by the player's preparation. The encounter's successful end should be marked by saying the exorcising formula, preceded by drawing some sort of a mystical symbol, with information about both of which acquired by the players previously during the encounter. And that's basically it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching it until the end. I really hope you've enjoyed this one, and if that is the case, I would be very grateful if you left a like, comment and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us. You can also join our Discord server. In the link in the description you can find the Altered Ghost stat block as well as an example of a ghostly encounter for you to check out. And for now, goodbye, and see you the next week.